Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for the chance given to me. My name is Rustika Dewi. By this occasion, I'm going to present my research paper with Ibu Ariswastini entitled Students' Perception of the Use of Poetry for Teaching Speaking. Well, as we know, EFL teachers always need teaching media in order to teach English skill for their students. According to Frame 2017, literature became one of the most chosen media to be integrated in teaching English in order to expose students with the target language in a natural way. There are many forms of literatures that can be integrated in EFL classroom to teach English skill. One of them is poetry. According to Ismail 2021, poetry becomes one of the literary genres which is used frequently in EFL classroom due to its advantages. Beimer et al. 2020, Tomac 2021 mentioned that poetry can be used to promote the development of students' receptive and productive skill by adjusting with the level of students' comprehension. It means that poetry can be integrated in teaching listening, reading, speaking, as well as writing. In teaching speaking, the use of poetry is effective to develop the students' language and non-language aspects, such as vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and confidence. The development of those speaking aspects can contribute to the improvement of students' speaking skill. By considering this fact, this present study was aimed at investigating students' perception toward the use of poetry to teach speaking. This present study employed interactive data analysis model in order to investigate the students' perception about the use of poetry to teach speaking. This interactive data analysis model consists of 4 stages, which is data collection, data condensation, data display, and conclusion drawing. In data collection, the data about students' perception were collected through reading, note-taking, and also data tabulation. And then in data condensation, the data about students' perception toward the use of poetry to teach speaking were classified into the aspect of speaking investigated in this present study, namely vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, and confidence. After that, in data display, the data that have been classified were elaborated and presented before the conclusion were drawn about the students' perception toward the use of poetry to teach speaking. This study involved 68 fourth semester students of English language education, in which the data was coming from the SI project about their perception toward the use of poetry to teach speaking. In terms of finding and discussion, this present study found that the students have positive perception on the use of poetry to teach speaking, in which the student perceive that the use of poetry is able to improve the language and non-language aspect of speaking, namely vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, and communicative confidence. As you can see on the diagram showed that there are 61.73% students who perceive that the use of poetry is able to improve students' vocabulary repertoire. Next, 20.99% students believe that the use of poetry in speaking classroom can develop students' pronunciation. There are 11.11% students who perceive that the use of poetry is able to improve students' grammar mastery. And then the last one, 6.17 students perceive that the use of poetry is able to develop students' communicative confidence. The first aspect of speaking investigated in this study is the development of vocabulary repertoire. Students believe that English vocabulary can be developed through poetry, since poetry introduces students with English words in context. Respondent 27 mentioned that poetry helps students to choose appropriate vocabulary to be used in particular situation. Moreover, Respondent 21 stated that poetry contains various figurative language and wordplay that can enrich students' vocabulary. This finding is supported by Jabseh 2019, who stated that poetry makes the students learn new vocabulary from the wordplay. Numerous linguistic features presented in the poetry give students opportunity to compose creative and fresh phrasing. Next aspect is pronunciation. Pronunciation is believed to be improved when poetry is used as a teaching media. Respondent 1 stated that the use of poetry to teach speaking is able to make the students get used with the pronunciation of various words in English through poetry reading, listening, and also repetition method. According to Hirsch and McElroy 2020, the exposure of spoken word when poetry is integrated in language classroom will guide the students to practice their pronunciation. The next aspect is the development of grammar mastery. Respondent 43 and 45 perceive that the use of poetry through poetry analysis provides platform for the students to recognize sentence structures and also to consider about its coherence. Liao 2017 mentioned that students learn about composing better sentence through poetry presented in the target language. In terms of communicative confidence, students perceive that the use of poetry to teach speaking is able to provide exciting and relaxing learning atmosphere, which can increase students' confidence to speak and also their motivation. Respondent 39 mentioned that poetry also provides motivation for students that contributes to the students' communicative confidence. Shed and Wahas 2020 stated that poetry enhances students' language skill along with their personalities as they become more confident to communicate with others and share their thoughts. In conclusion, student perception on the use of poetry to teach speaking is positive in terms of vocabulary repertoire, pronunciation, grammar mastery, and also communicative confidence. By integrating poetry in speaking class, students can gain new vocabulary and learn how it is pronunciated. Learning about sentence structure and also gain confidence to use English in communication. Therefore, the use of poetry as teaching media in language learning is suggested by considering the instructional activities to deliver based on the level of the target learners and also the development of students' language skill altogether. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's all for my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. Have a nice day. Thank you.